22-year-old Jennifer Schuett not only survived her abduction, but she remembered almost every single detail about the man who climbed into her bedroom window and her. She's heavily medicated, in excruciating pain, reliving her trauma, but nevertheless, within an hour, they have their composite sketch of the suspects. They said it was monumental that this girl was that accurate. They said this was the most accurate composite sketch they had ever seen in their entire careers. She was completely unclothed. There were hundreds and thousands of fire ants biting her body. Jennifer had been tortured, assaulted, and left for dead on a fire ant hill. So Jennifer gets rushed to the hospital where police officers, doctors, nurses, her mother, everyone is telling her she's safe now, everything's gonna be okay now. And it wouldn't be for a while that they discovered that whoever did this, the monster that did this to her, was also a patient in that same hospital, the same time that she was there. I'm so sorry, but you're kicking me in your sleep and I've got work in the morning. Would you mind going to your own room tonight? She rolls out of her mom's bed and walks into her room. Jennifer drifts off into sleep in no time. Her light is on and her window is open a crack. Jennifer had a nightmare. Or at least it felt like she was having a nightmare, okay? One where she was getting tossed around like a doll, and she opened her eyes expecting to be in bed still, but she looked up to see her body being moved by a man that she did not recognize. Jennifer was very, very sharp. Even while she was being smothered by this giant hand, she wanted to stay alert. So she's looking around and she thinks to herself, 2 doors, blue yucky paint. That was the car that this man threw her into. He gets in, locks the car doors, and within seconds they were already on the road. He forces Jennifer to sit on his lap, and he had one hand on the wheel and another hand on her head to yank her head down anytime another car passed them. Jennifer was so terrified. She's just analyzing the situation, trying to find a way out, when finally the man speaks. It's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. I'm an undercover police officer. So Jennifer's confused. What is going on? I'm supposed to trust this guy. I want to believe him, but there is just something so off about him. He doesn't feel like a police officer. So she tells him, well, can I see your gun and badge then? I don't have my gun or badge with me right now. Jennifer was confused, but she looks up, and right at that moment, she sees that they're driving past her grandparents' house. So Elaine's parents' house, they live nearby. And she's eagerly telling him, oh, that's my grandparents, you should drop me off here. You need to drop me off because they can help me. If you're a police officer and you took me because I'm in danger, you need to drop me off with my grandparents. He didn't stop driving, and Jennifer realized if he was a police officer, surely he would have taken her to a trusted family member's house, right? This is the moment that Jennifer started to believe that she was being. But she didn't just panic, she was quick on her feet. She remembered looking at him and repeating in her head, glasses, mustache, yucky hair, scar on face. She tries not to panic, and she makes it her mission to just remember everything. She remembers seeing empty cans, bottles. She remembers all of this. And then finally, the car turns off and the man pulls her out into this overgrown field with tall grass. He lunges for her throat and holds a knife up to it. Am I scaring you, little girl? Am I scaring you? And it felt like he was trying to kill her. It didn't even feel like he was just trying to strangle her, but he was full on trying to snap her neck. That's how she felt. She lost consciousness again, and during these times we later find out that she was brutally assaulted. And the next thing that she felt was her body being dragged through the field by her ankles. She was barely able to stay awake at this point, let alone even fight back or even move or talk. She felt him drop her legs and walk off. He had already slit her throat at this point. His car door slammed and he drove off, just leaving her in the field for dead. Any time that she woke up and tried to figure out what the hell was going on, she would fade out into unconsciousness again. She said, I would come in and out of consciousness, and every time I would come to, I would just be in disbelief that I hadn't died yet. Now, before she knew it, the sun was rising and it's the next day already. Jennifer could feel all of these little stings and nips all over her little body, and she felt these things crawling and biting her, and she tries screaming for help. But that's when she discovers that big gaping wound, basically a hole in her neck. Her hand was covered in blood. Anytime she tried to hold her neck together, whether from shock or pain or from loss of, she would just drift back into darkness. This kept happening all day long. So that's what she was doing all night long, into the morning, then all day long, until early evening rolls around. I imagine she thought about her mom or her friends from school, or I don't know. But speaking of her friends from school, it felt like she could hear them right now. Or at least she could hear people right now, like young little kids playing in the field. And those voices started coming closer and closer to Jennifer, and she could make out the sound of a young girl giggling and running through the field, laughing with her friends. These weren't Jennifer's friends, but they were all very close in age. That little girl ran, giggling, not a care in the world, until she tripped over Jennifer's limp foot. Jennifer remembers the girl's little voice turning into multiple voices that become louder and louder, and it felt like there was a whole commotion over her. She tried to wake up, and all she could see was a police officer, which was probably traumatizing. But this one was in uniform, and they told her, "You've been found. You're going to be okay. Stay with us. Just please stay with us." Jennifer was airlifted to the hospital via helicopter, and everyone thought that she was going to die. Her chance of survival was slim to none, practically non-existent. Her skin was completely pale, drained of all color, and her body was covered in ant bites. I mean, every single surface area of her body was bitten by fire ants. She had contusions that indicated that she had been beaten, and of course, doctors speculated SA because she was found unclothed in a field with intense scratches on her back. Jennifer was in and out of consciousness, and the only part of her body that she could control at the time were her eyes. The doctors noticed that anytime a male doctor or a male nurse or any male staffer would come anywhere near, her eyes would widen in panic, reaffirming their belief that something horrendous had happened before she was left for dead. Because Jennifer's trachea had been slashed in half. That's why she couldn't scream. Every single medical professional in that OR knew that Jennifer would never be able to speak again. The trauma to her throat was so extensive, it slashed her voice box. Her vocal cords were slashed in half. There was just no way. So right now, we've got Jennifer's pajamas that were found in the field. We've got a blue men's t-shirt and a pair of men's underwear that was also discarded nearby in the field where Jennifer was found. But at this point in time, I know you're like looking at me like, that's amazing, that's all you need. In this point in time, DNA evidence was not specific enough to ID a suspect with such a small sample. Like DNA back then, you would need like a sample. You would need like a genuine sample. So these things, they would be kept in evidence, but there's nothing that can be tested that could tell them anything. So it's pertinent to the police that they catch whoever did this because there is a danger out there to children. The police also had no leads, no potential suspects, no witnesses. The only thing the police had was Jennifer, and there was a lot of concern about talking to Jennifer about what had happened to her. First of all, she's 8, and this could easily re-traumatize her. Second of all, adults alone have a very hard time remembering details, especially after traumatic events. How could they expect an 8-year-old to remember? And third, she was very, very scared of people right now, especially men. And this is a small town in Texas. Majority of the police force were men. And fourth, she couldn't speak or make noise, so she could just blink or once or twice to say yes or no, and she could either write on a sketch pad. But Jennifer, yes, she's smarter than I would ever be, even at just 8 years old, but she does have like the reading comprehension and the writing skills of a second grader, which is to be expected. So they come up with this system where the police would ask Jennifer's mom and Nurse Sharon all these questions that they want Jennifer to answer. They would go in with a sketch pad and Jennifer would write down her answers. Her ability to recall traumatic memories and the fact that she was so observant is out of this world. I mean, these would all lead to be key circumstantial evidence later that would help with the arrest. 8-year-old Jennifer Shuett not only survived her abduction, but she remembered almost every single detail about the man who climbed into her bedroom window and kidnapped her. And her notes would forever be known as Jennifer's notes. She wrote in detail about what she wore that night, that she was asleep when she was grabbed, that he told her to shut up, that he was white, he had glasses, brown hair, totally green tattoos, black mustache, in his 30s maybe. She even drew a little sketch to show where the scars on his face were, and at the very last page she wrote, he said his name was Dennis. After Jennifer's notes were completed, the authorities even brought in a female forensic artist. So she's like a composite sketch artist who's going to talk to Jennifer and start drawing the attacker. This was Jennifer's 4th day at the hospital. She's heavily medicated, in excruciating pain, reliving her trauma, but nevertheless, within an hour, they have their composite sketch of the suspect. It showed a man with dark hair, dark eyes, dark eyebrows, and a mustache and stubble all over his chin. He also had a scar on his face. They turn it into the police, and I think this is when Jennifer focuses all of her energy on just recovery now. Now, remember how the first responders said that there's no way she's going to survive? Well, she did. And remember how they said that she would never talk again? Well, she did. She had to relearn inflection and speech patterns, but all of it returned. I mean, her voice, her octaves, inflection, tone, all of it was restored. She was proof that the impossible was possible. But even though she's defying all these odds, okay, it's still very scary for her to go back to the normal world because her attacker is still out there somewhere. What if he comes back to finish the job? What if he comes back to make sure that she will never be able to talk about it again? So Jennifer got closer and closer to how her life was, but the police are getting further and further from catching the attacker. Days turned into weeks, and you know how it goes. It was a cold case. Jennifer's an adult. She's no longer that 8-year-old girl. Which, side note, I know I'm making it out to be like, oh, Jennifer is so strong, which she is. Oh my gosh, she's so strong. But she also went through a lot. Like, this was not an easy road where she's like, okay, guys, I'm just going to go back to school now and be fine. She remembers being a child. She would lock herself into the bathroom for hours and just stare at the, quote, ugly long red scar on her neck. She felt like she did something to deserve this attack. She couldn't participate in PE classes anymore because of her airways. So she would have to go to the nurse's office and she would sit there while the rest of her friends played. She was scared of parking lots, of windows, of going to sleep, of the dark. She had anxiety, panic attacks, PTSD. Most nights, she would just sit up for hours at night just trying to calm herself to sleep. This is what an 8-year-old is going through. Well, the case goes cold. So she falls in love with this man, Jonathan Martinez. The two of them get married, and Jonathan was like the man of her dreams, the one that she wanted to have children with and start a family with. He was like the biggest cheerleader. He knew everything that she went through to be who she is now. She had to learn to be less afraid of the dark, to sleep alone again. She had to unlearn her deep-rooted fear of men, like even doctors and police and men in her life that she could trust. She had to unlearn that fear. This is what she would have to go through every day for the rest of her life. But Jonathan was helping her through it. Even when she was diagnosed with hydrosalpinx, I think, at just 25 years old, he was right there with her. So if you're wondering what that is, it's a condition where your fallopian tubes are blocked and they're filled with fluid. She was told by her doctors that it was due to complications as a result of the essay when she was 8. And because they're blocked and filled with fluid, she may never be able to conceive any children. So this devastation just starts hitting again. Like, she's finally moving on from everything that's happened, and boom, her life goal, her life dream to have a family has been shattered. So while she's in the thick of these emotions from this diagnosis, she gets a phone call from a man named Tim Cromie. Tim Cromie was the new detective that was in charge of her case. It had been 18 years since her attack. There had been so many before him that took a look at her case, and what? Nothing happened. I mean, it was more painful to even convince herself that this one's going to be different. It's 2009, 19 years since the attack, which in police investigations, we know that time is the enemy. Like, they barely have anything to go off of. Detective Cromie reaches out to the FBI to help with the investigation, and in 2009, this was the year for a lot of new tech. DNA testing had grown significantly. Detective Cromie got a call at 2:30 in the morning. They had a match. Whoever did this was already in the system. Dennis Earl Bradford. The detectives went back to Jennifer's notes and they saw the name was Dennis. They said it was monumental that this girl was that accurate. Remember the composite sketch? Mm-hmm. They said this was the most accurate composite sketch they had ever seen in their entire careers. And when Dennis was in Texas, his residential address was in Dickinson around the time of the crime. Dickinson. In fact, from Jennifer's apartment window, you could probably see his residence. He only lived a few blocks away. And Dennis Earl Bradford had been convicted of and rape in 1997, 7 years after Jennifer's attack. He was arrested and charged with attempted first-degree murder. Now, for some strange reason, the charges were later reduced to kidnapping and rape. Now, side note, this is infuriating, but the jury, they were deadlocked on the assault charge. He was sentenced to 12 years and ordered to provide a DNA sample for the database. Arkansas correction records showed that he served less than 3 years in prison before he was released. He was paroled February of 2000. He was arrested the next year for drinking and driving. And in 2004, Dennis remarried a woman named Elizabeth. She had 3 children before marrying Dennis, and he legally adopted them, legally becoming their stepfather. Which scares me because, I mean, think about it. He's a father and a stepfather. Creepy. Now, from then on, we don't know what he was doing. We don't know if he had any other victims, but we do know that he was in North Little Rock when he was arrested during a routine traffic stop without incident. He was arrested by the Arkansas police, brought into the station where the Texas detectives were there to meet him. He was held without bail on the attempted murder charge. When Jennifer got that call that he was arrested, she said, "It was the most surreal moment of my life. It meant everything to me." So after Dennis was booked, he was interviewed about Jennifer's case from 19 years ago. Now, side note, because Jennifer was a minor when this happened and it was an ongoing investigation, the information in case files were not publicized.
Okay.
So that means the last time Dennis saw Jennifer was when he dumped her body in the field 19 years ago. He believed wholeheartedly that she was dead. Because that was his intention. He left her for dead on top of an ant pile. He firmly believed he killed that 8-year-old little girl. He had no reason to believe otherwise.
You ever heard the name Jennifer Schuett?
Yes.
Did you ever have occasion to come in contact with her?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
No. My whole life for the past 20 years has been utterly and completely because of my mistake.
If you were to see her, I think you would be extremely proud of her. I really do.
Oh, thank you. She's alive.
Yes, she's alive.
She's alive.
She's alive. Let me tell you, she is incredible young.
Well, you have no idea how hard I have prayed for that. I'm a firm believer of Christ, but I had no idea, because it wasn't but about 2 days later I ran, and I just took off.
He told the police officer that he used a shotgun to try and end his own life shortly after what he did to Jennifer, but he decided not to. He did, however, blow a hole through his parents' roof, and he was brought into the hospital after his attempt. The same hospital that Jennifer was in. The same hospital Jennifer was recovering in. Jennifer had every right to be afraid of this guy, because he was in the same hospital. But ultimately, Dennis confirms all the details that she remembered, and he confesses to it all. And Jennifer was so relieved. At the press conference, she declared, "I'm not a victim. I'm victorious." Jennifer had waited 19 years for this, and now she focused all of her attention on prepping for this trial. Dennis admits to the crime. He matched the description, he matched the DNA, and they were planning to go for a life sentence. Now, he was supposed to appear in front of the judge on August 10th. Jennifer had picked the date, exactly 20 years of the day of the attack. She said it was a full circle moment. She gets a call from Detective Cromie, and her heart dropped. She already knew. Dennis had himself in his jail cell after confessing. He made a noose from his bedding, and there was no signs of foul play. It was definitely suicide. So he died, 40 years old, May 10th, 2010. It's believed that Dennis was a serial predator to children and adults. He knew that his life was over the minute he was caught. More of his crimes would likely surface. He knew the things that other inmates would do to him if he spent the rest of his life in prison. So instead of taking these consequences, facing the consequences, he took the, quote, easy way out. And now that Dennis was deceased, his case was immediately dropped, and Jennifer felt like she could go to his grave. She had to. Exactly 20 years later, instead of going to court, Jennifer and her husband went to Dennis's grave, August 10th of 2010, and she read her impact statement that she had prepared for court, and she read it directly to Dennis while standing over his dead body. And then the most surreal thing happened. Jennifer turned to her husband and asked, "Do you think he heard me?" Ow! She looked down, and right then and there, a single fire ant bit her ankle, and she took it as a sign from God that he had heard her loud and clear. But the story doesn't even end there. Remember how Jennifer was diagnosed with a condition that made it nearly impossible for her to have her own children. A doctor heard about her story and heard of her diagnosis, offered Jennifer and Jonathan free IVF. IVF is not guaranteed to work, side note, but just to try, right? The couple have since then welcomed 2 beautiful children into their family, a daughter and a son, which is remarkable because medical professionals doubted that she would survive. It would take a miracle, they said. Medical professionals doubted that she would ever talk again. It would take a miracle, they said. Medical professionals doubted that she could ever conceive her own children. It would take a miracle, they said. And she did it all. And I'm gonna cry.